Thank you very much. I hope that you have enjoyed your lunch. I hope also everyone online treated themselves to something nice, that you had time to talk, because that, of course, is a big part of coming together, and this is why it is important for us to host physically. Before handing over to Monique, Fiona, and Louis to continue the role of competition and its importance for Europe to thrive and to have, its global impression, let me first thank you again for being here today, being in the room, being with us online. Your interest, I think, shows the importance of what we are discussing today. Whatever your background, I do think that we share a belief in maintaining, nourishing, developing an economy that truly works for people. Or, as we put it in Europe, a social market economy. The thing is, everyone wants to belong. And one thing is, if you lose your job and you get fired from a business, hopefully, eventually, you would find another job. But if you have this feeling that you're being fired from the society that you live in, where do you go? And this is why it's so important that our social market economy really works, so people feel that they are counted in, that they are part of it. But I think that your interest also shows that we have a serious challenge. We're not there. And it's important to acknowledge this openly, upfront. The lack of choice, the lack of opportunity may undermine people's beliefs in society, undermine their belief in this sort of capitalism that we have. Maybe they have the same feeling as Joe Biden when he tweeted this summer, capitalism without competition isn't capitalism, it's exploitation. So it's not a detail. In a digital world, when people don't feel that they have real choices as to how do they access information, how do they find products online, well, this can damage our very democracies, because it may discourage voters from participating in our democracies and increasing the pressure to embrace politics that will actually undermine our efforts to build societies where you can feel at home, like protectionism, economic nationalism. Maybe part of the problem is how we communicate about what we as competition law enforcers and policymakers do, and what we do already. We talk quite a lot about efficient market outcomes. That is a beautiful phrase. I know you love it too. Sometimes we may forget to say that the whole point of efficient market outcomes is quite straightforward, that there is food on the shelf and that it is on that shelf at a price that is actually affordable for the family. And when we talk about something that is even more dear to me, defending against anti-competitive practices, also beautiful words. Sometimes we may forget to say that the reason why we do this is so that young people with big dreams, with great ambitions, with fresh ideas, can start a new business and do things in a way that it has not been done before. Maybe launch a product that makes our lives richer, better. And by keeping focus on these human goals, I think we make it clear that what we want to achieve is to make people better off. And that can help build public support for our day-to-day work of keeping markets on track, whether through regulation or competition law enforcement. It has been said, nobody falls in love with the single market. Well, that must be nobody -1, because I am. And I don't think that we should think of this as something unattainable, because the market is us. Maybe we also had a bit of bad branding for the market with this sort of invisible hand thing, because that's a bit ghost-like, keeping us from realizing that the market is just thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people going about, making choices, doing their business, making the market. So maybe if people see that the single market is really about them, it's about the family, it will be easier for us to tell about the decisions that we take, why we think that new rules might be needed, why we are pushing forward. And this focus on people, it's more than a slogan. It's more than messaging. It is something that we use on substance to shape what it is that we do. Because it is a very well-defined perspective, because you can do something else. You can focus on businesses instead, or you can focus on just few people, or you can focus on just few countries. But there is a special thing when you say that you focus on people. And I think especially now, with the world changing at such a fast pace, you saw sort of the diagnosis that we gave in the first panel. We've shot the light behind us. We've said goodbye to that level of stability and predictability of low inflation and low interest rate that we've had for a very long time. And we have been thrown into a world of volatility and uncertainty, and yet we want to and we need to push forward. And so we need to find new solutions, new ways of working, and sometimes with very, very, very short notice. We saw that at the start of the pandemic. We saw that when Russia invaded Ukraine. And in finding new solutions, the first question that we ask ourselves is, how will this impact people? Because it's not neutral. And we try to be so ambitious that we say that even though we are managing an urgency here and now, we want to make sure that we are improving people's lives in what we do. Because we cannot lose track of the long term, even though we are managing an emergency right here and now. Because every step we take in the emergency situation sets the direction for the future. So the two things will have to be aligned. We discussed these questions set in the first panel, dealt with the role of competition policy in managing the crisis, boosting competitiveness, contributing to diversity, supporting our democracies, and I think very importantly, making sure that no one is being left behind. But serving people, that is basically what democracy is for, is about obviously more than low prices, innovation, and a wide choice of products. I think we would find that to be a very poor society. As many young people have shown us with the Fridays for Future and other climate protests over the last, actually, 4 years, no surprise, but people do care about the future of our planet. And that is why, in order to work for people, our competition rules and market regulations, they might also work to support our green objectives. Not just decarbonizing the economy, but also reducing pollution, reducing waste, protecting biodiversity. And we see that this is a real thing. We have had the first cartels in the circular economy. And I think that's a very good sign that the circular economy is slowly maturing. The challenge, of course, in what we do right now, when it comes to the green transition, is that we are in the middle of a severe energy crisis. We want an effective response to Russia's weaponization of our energy market, that it has been turned against us, that it is undermining so many things of what we want to do. But the thing is that in finding these responses, what we are trying to do on a day-to-day basis is to make sure that we also maximize the probability that we'll get to our long-term goals. Because we made a promise. We made a promise to the next generation that, that we will enable a real green transition. Competition is not in the lead here. Competition law enforcement is not. But it has a supportive role to play. And in my opinion, there's no shame in being a subcontractor, because you still have a role. Linked to this are the ways in which competition policy supports the digital transition. In the Commission lingo, we very often talk about the digital and the green transition as twins. Actually, that might be a bit misleading, because there will be no green transition without digital. But we can have a digital transition without that being green. So there are asymmetries here. One twin was born before the other, and one twin depends on the other. And it is really important, because when we think about what makes people better off, well, then we need the competition to drive the innovation so that new services, new products are being launched. It can be smart traffic management systems that reduces energy waste on traffic jams, and because of that, also pollution in our cities. It can be digital solutions in production to bring down input costs, save energy, reduce emissions. Smart farming, that can reduce the use of pesticides and fertilizer, and because of that, we have more wildlife and cleaner water. And here, competition policy and regulation has a dual, or have a common role in keeping digital markets open and fair, because otherwise we do not get this innovation that we need for the green transition to happen. And digital markets, they have special features that we have learned over the last 10 years. They scale. They have this special feature of data pushing it. And these markets can still work for people, but for that to happen, they must be fair and contestable. And these are the efforts that we're doing right now with the competition law enforcement case by case being complemented by our enforcement of the Digital Markets Act to come. And then, maybe one of the toughest challenges of all, making sure that Europe marks its place in a shifting global order. And that we do so with the interest of people in mind. Because there are other priorities. Again, it is not trivial. Because in Europe, our mandate comes from the integrity of the individual, that every one of us have the right to be here. Which is, by the way, one of the reasons why we have proposed that artificial intelligence biometric identification cannot be used by governments to do social scoring systems or blanket surveillance in public space. So we need, it's not trivial. And yet we have to change. For 70 years, free and open trade has brought enormous benefit for Europeans, not just prosperity, but also creating a lot of jobs that has made us so much better off. Most obviously, of course, the export sectors, but also as consumers, we have benefited from the widest possible range of products to choose from. And finally, open and fair trade has made our economy richer, providing us with the fiscal resources to invest in what makes our societies work. Social protection, health, infrastructure, education, research. All these things that are a completely integrated part of the European economic model. Now we are recalibrating globalization. And maybe it's a good thing that we shot the light behind us, because even the recent past wasn't that good. Because there were so many things that we had not solved. Now, competition law enforcers all over the planet come together to get it right on digital. We're diversifying on our energy supply, in our supply of raw materials. In every trade agreement that we make, ILO conventions is absolutely key for decent worker conditions. This is a different globalization. This is one that is much more safe for everyone involved, including the planet. Some of you might have taken time in the break to look at the results from the latest Eurobarometer survey. I find them interesting because the results, they are solid and they are consistent all over Europe. And what they say is that competition improves the daily lives of citizens, small and medium-sized businesses. It brings better choices and increased innovation. So people, they do see what it is that we do. So of course we should not sway. We should continue along this path. But at the same time, with this new world of volatility, of uncertainty, with the task of recalibrating globalization, never underestimate the challenges that we face. And defending our interests means finding the right balance between, on the one hand, the ideals of free and open trade, on the other hand, making sure that our economies are resilient in the face of external disruption and the threats that we now know better than ever before. Overall, this is not something that we in Europe should do alone. And you know, in Europe, we never feel alone, because first and foremost, we have each other. As you will know, we are celebrating the fact that the national competition authorities, they're enforcing European competition law with us, making sure that everywhere in Europe, you can rely on someone to keep you safe, no matter if it's the national market or the European market that is cheating on you. But we do lift our gaze to look outside of Europe, to have the dialogue with authorities, with partners that share what we do, share our values. We have stepped up the dialogue with the United States, with the Trade and Technology Council, and we do that with partners all over the globe, because you cannot recalibrate globalization without talking together, without having the dialogue. And not only does this make us more effective on the global stage, but it is in itself a statement that we believe in liberty, in democracy, in human rights, and obviously, fundamentally, in the rule of law. Because ultimately, in order for markets to work for people, they must serve the values and the principles of a free and a just society. And in doing so, they will also help us to resist aggression, to promote peace, because that must be a fundamental and ongoing effort. Thank you very much.